Okay, last lecture on this topic here. Just want to go over some additional effects that these various mindsets have. And so, if you recall, with this Rubicon model, each phase has a different mindset or cognitive orientation, right? And this mindset can spill over to unrelated tasks. And so, for example, here, um, with the evaluative or post-actional phase evaluative mindset, we see that people will rate objects or products differently. And that's on the extreme sides. And so, what I mean by that is neutral objects, things are rated the same, but those in the evaluative mindset will rate positive products or things more positively. And they'll also rate negative objects or things more negatively. And so, for an example, those in an evaluative mindset would be likely to rate a spider as more negative. And I'll go over a few more examples of things like that. And there, I'm going to be focusing on the pre-decisional, pre-actional, and the post-actional phases because this actional phase tends to have relatively similar cognitive processes or a similar cognitive orientation to this pre-actional phase. So there's not too much of a need to differentiate between these two in what I'm talking about in this lecture. So first, we see some optimism and realism differences by mindset. And so here, the conditions we're looking at are pre-decisional and post-decisional mind or phases. And the pre-decisional is also just another name for the or post-decisional, sorry, is another name for the pre-actional. That's what we've been calling it so far. And in this study, they had participants think of a goal you have not yet set for yourself. That would be the pre-decisional, right? Or think of a goal that you have set for yourself. That would be the post-decisional. And we see differences in desirability. So those with a more of a pre-decisional mindset are thinking of those pros and cons, right, that we talked about. And so they consider both positive and negative desirability aspects. With implementation, that's down here, we see that there are more implementation thoughts for those in the post-decisional or pre-actional phase, right? Because that is literally what they're doing or what they're about to do is planning, figuring out how to implement whatever behaviors are needed to reach that goal. There's also a positivity difference that I'd like to point out. And so looking at the desirability again, we see that those in the pre-decisional are thinking about both, right? Both positive and negative things because they're trying to decide in a realistic way, should I pursue this goal? So that's where we see more of a realism orientation with the pre-decisional in the pre-decisional phase versus in the pre-actional or post-decisional phase, we see quite a bit more focus on positive consequences, right? And not too much focus on negative consequences. Oops. And so with that also makes sense, right? Where there should be more optimism when we are in this pre-actional or post-decisional phase because we've decided to go and pursue this goal. That decision has been made. So now let's figure out how we can do it. Let's shield from some potential negative distractions that can keep us away from that or revert us back to the pre-decisional phase. Okay, so those with the implemental mindset are doing more goal shielding typically. And so again, moving to this implemental mindset, right? That's a shift into volition. In this study, those So there's either a deliberative condition or an implemental condition. In the deliberative condition, they're instructed that there is going to be a task and you will just be trying this task out. In the implemental condition, they were told you are being assigned this task, and do you think that this was the right task for you? And all participants just did a pretty basic attention task, and then in between trials, there were words on the screen. This acted as a distractor. And what the participants didn't know is that they'd be doing a surprise memory task with these distractor words. So their job with this surprise task was to recall as quickly as possible, it's the reaction time here, those distractor words. And so a good performance, a little bit counterintuitive, would be a slower reaction time to these distractor words, because that means that they were focused on the initial attention task and less focused on the distractions. And we see that with those in the implemental mindset versus those with the deliberative mindset, where we're quite a bit quicker at recognizing those distractor words. And this makes sense, right? Because in the deliberative mindset, we should be trying to focus on all information to see if we want to pursue this goal, or in this case, if they like the task that they're trying out, versus in the implemental mindset, this is the task that you're doing, this is the goal that you're pursuing, and so you should be shielding against distractors. And we do see that once we get into more of a volitional implemental phase, there's increases in goal shielding. Finally, just want to point out some cognitive differences for the post-actional phase, which is associated with the evaluative mindset. And so in this study, there is the actional phase, pre-decisional phase, and post-actional phase. So the post-actional is the evaluative mindset there. There are various instructions to get people in these mindsets. For the actional, they were instructed, think of a project you are working on but haven't yet finished. For the pre-decisional, think of a project you are thinking about working on but haven't started yet. And for the post-actional, think about a project that you have recently finished. And we see a few differences here. So we see more emotional extremity to feedback for this post-actional phase. This makes sense, right? Because we should be very focused on feedback after we have finished whatever action it is, because we're trying to look back and see, did we complete that goal? So we are more prepared for feedback. We're thinking about feedback already, and we're more receptive to it too. And that leads to more emotional extremity to feedback. Additionally, there's more focus on outcome quality. That makes sense too. Just again, trying to figure out, okay, did I complete this goal, or do I need to re-enter these phases or this feedback loop per se and start trying again? Do I need to change my strategy, or am I good to go? Did I complete my goal and I can just exit this loop now and focus on something else? Finally, we see more likely to, not in this study, but other studies have shown that we are more likely to change our goal or strategy during this evaluative mindset in the post-actional phase versus during an implemental mindset in the actional phase. Because but when we're in the actional phase, right, we're implementing, we should have already planned things out, and so we should know our strategy, and we should shield against other distractions, and we should want to stick with this goal or strategy. All right, that's it. We will continue on in the next videos with self-regulation.